Simoyget, Sigaram Hanak, kan Wilson. Hup-Wil-Lax-A whilst we get Gitxsan, Ts'msyen. My ancestral name is Hup-Wil-Lax-A. It translates to the carrier of wisdom. My English name is Kirby Muldoe. I am honored and proud to stand before you today to moderate this session of the Peace and Unity Summit. I am from Wilpes-we-Get, from the Gitxsan people, from the fireweed people. My father is Alg'mxaa, George Muldoe, who is in the building today. My mother is the late Isabel Hill, Isabel Ryan, as some of you may know her. She's from Kitkatla. She's from the Ts'msyen people. So my mother is Ts'msyen, my father is Gitxsan, and I'm proud to be from both nations. I would like to call up Simoyget Yahaan, Alg'mxaa, to do a welcome to the Ts'msyen territory, to the territory of the Hup-Wil-Lax-A people, and other hereditary chiefs who are here, and representatives from the Ts'msyen people. I welcome you to come up and welcome the people who have come to witness the work we're doing today. Cameras are on.
Why? Simoyget. Sigamana. Kabawelser. Anikalja Kw'alaams. Simoyget Yahaan. Duayo. Gitbulgiot Simoyget. I'd like to welcome everyone here on the second day. We had a very good turnout yesterday on our opening day. I'd like to recognize a couple of people in the building here this morning, prestigious people in the world. I'd like George Muldoe and Yahaan, both ranking people in their nation, to stand up to be recognized. Yahaan, George, please stand. These two people here have led court challenges in the past year, and the names handed down. Last year, I was up in Stoeppler territory on the land. I always thought about where I at my back door here, where I live here in Kw'alaams, and the beauty of my homeland. And when I was invited up there the past 2 years out in the land there and to recognize what the Wet'suwet'en and the Gitxsan are trying to protect in their motherland, I was overwhelmed by the beauty of the country, and they were showing the vastness of their land. And John, the Mux, he was showing me places that his grandmother and mother, where they used to hunt, where there are now highways and farms and etc. It took me back to my own time when I was growing up. My parents took me out on the land where we lived offshore out in Dundas, a place called Prince Lebo. It's a place of beauty where very little men or women get to see. The country has white sand beaches, and food is abound. We never ever went to the store because we never had stores back in those days. We never had running water. We never had electricity until the middle 60s, so growing up in that lifestyle, time was irrelevant. It was, we didn't know what time meant, only to harvest. And that's how I grew up until I left for high school. When I did get down to high school, I was always fighting. I couldn't adapt to society. So I came back at a very, very early age, and I begged my brothers to get me a boat. I was a very young kid when I got my first boat. I was 15 years old when I took to the ocean. And 2 years ago, I retired and sold my last boat I bought. And this year I went back on the ocean. Again, it was my calling. So this river that these guys are protecting, where they put the pipeline under, and I thought about, governments. We've been dealing with governments on this issue for a long time, and for them to do what they did to these people here is atrocious. Taking away a food source, take away a way of living. I don't know any other living. I don't know. I've had other jobs. I've had multiple jobs where I didn't like what I was doing, well-paying jobs. But it was always back to Mother Earth that treated me well. As I grew older, reality of the land, of what I was standing on, fishing on, harvesting on, it kept on giving back and kept on giving back and kept on giving back. And I thought, I don't need money. And I've always said it today, I need very little money in my life to function. And when all this shit happened up in Unistoten there a couple of years ago with a standoff with armies and police brutality and stuff like that, I was watching on TV, and I phoned John the Mux, and I asked him, I said, I want to go up there. I said, I'll stand with the chiefs up there to get arrested. And he told me, he said he didn't want that. He said he would invite me up, but he wouldn't put me on the front lines. I don't know, a lot of you don't know who I am, but I was one of the occupiers with my family and my tribe on Lilo Island in 2015, and we went through pretty well the same stuff as what the Wet'suwet'en went through. And I didn't know about these kind of things. I didn't know about environmental issues this much here like that. And when Kirby and a few of them showed up on the beaches on Lilo there and were telling me a few things about what to expect, and everything they told me, it came down, and we ended up a couple of years later in Supreme Court, and we filed a court injunction on our right to the land. Who has the right to govern the land? Chief and council or the hereditary people? In my eyes, and it's always been and it still stands until the day I die, it's always that the hereditary blood that has the final say on land issues. I still fight with my council all the time. My people, we're on the verge of losing our land. We have Upper River bands I'll name them, Kw'alaams and McPhail. They're stealing our land. The government just signed off a accord just a few weeks ago, and they signed off Alg'mxaa land. So now we have to go to court, I assume, and I don't know if we'll ever get our land back. The 9 tribes of Kw'alaams encompasses 10,600 square miles of land. I know my boundaries. I know the boundaries from the Nass River up into the waters of the Skeena River. I know the boundaries of Gitxsan, Hartley Bay, Klemtu. These boundaries have been put in place a long time ago, long before we were here. I've always talked about warfare. There was warfare. There were thousands of years of warfare in this area. And that's how we got to be in this land here. It was by warfare. It wasn't by just coming here on a migration. The migration of my people, it's a 16,000-year story of where we come from. The people you see here, these are the migration people. We're the migration people. We're the people that survived the pandemics when the Hudson's Bay Fort came to our doors and poisoned us. I live in an island back home in Kw'alaams. It's called Place of Wild Roses. That's what Kw'alaams means. And then there's a back cemetery there where my mother's mother was telling her of the plague of where they were packing bodies up 5, 6 at a time in a day, and the people were escaping to the outer islands, the outer villages to try to get away from the pandemic, only to take the disease to all the outside islands, to the inlets, to the mountains. Almost everyone in our nation died. We, the people you see standing here, were the remnants of that. Out of 10,000 of us, 600 survived. So we pretty well got wiped out, and we still feel the effects of the Hudson's Bay Company. I could go on with a million different stories about alcohol and contact and where it happened, what they did to our chiefs. It's all recorded by our people and by the Hudson's Bay, what they did. So when you see us here today, even yourselves, every one of you guys in this room of descent, we all went through the same thing. We all went through the same path. Our paths may be different in culture and stuff like that, but we all had the same thing happen to us. I have a lot more to say, I guess, in the day or so to come, but I'll end it with that, and I'd like to thank you for this time. Thank you.
It's hard to be humble when you move so slow. Anyway, before we begin, we always start with a short prayer to God of your understanding, however you see God. Maybe it's not the same way that I see God, but we pray to the one God, Creator. We thank you for the gift of another day. We thank you for all the information that is coming before us, and all of us sitting under one roof today. I ask that you give us words of wisdom for peace and unity in this hall. Thank you. Amen. If you look at the people that are standing here, and if you look around at all the Native people that are sitting there, residential school couldn't get rid of us. The government couldn't eliminate us. I watched a little boy dancing here last night, Donnie's grandson. That's where it begins. The change begins at home. And you know there's peace and unity, the sacred unceded territory that we stand on is the same as the territory that you have. Wherever you're from, your territory is very sacred. I know that a lot of you go into the bush or live in the interior, you go hunting, and you become one with God, the God of your understanding, where there's peace and serenity in there. I know that happens. And I know that when I come here and I watch the dancers, I listen to their songs, it gets my heart beating to a different place. And it's a place of serenity that I know we're not only surviving, we're thriving today. We are people that could not be eliminated, and we will not be eliminated. You know, there's a little story. I like telling stories. Sometimes they're true, so just listen. You know, they did a world census many years ago, and the world census says we have too many people on earth. We got to cut back having babies. We got to have 1.5 child. How do you have a half a child? I never heard of that. So we got to cut back on that. And the chief from down south, I can't remember his name, he said, just a minute, hold on. He said, the rest of the world are overpopulated, not us native people. So with the all native people, the message that got out is you young athletes are there, you young men, you keep it up. I know, I hope you caught that one. So you can see we caught up, we're there. It's nice to be able to come amongst people and feel at home and not feel threatened or not be intimidated by standing amongst government officials. And you know the word reconciliation is a good word, but we need action to prove that the government is actually doing something, that their ears are open and they're going to listen to what we have to say. Not just play games with us and write down and say, okay, we'll get back to you. We don't do that anymore. The actions that Nagata and his tribe have taken proves that. The Haidas have proved that by the land that they signed on a few days ago. The Bella Bella people have signed off. People that take action and not be afraid. You say, you can't fish here, that's our territory. We know we got to build up the herring here, we got to build up the sockeye here, we got to do all kinds of things. And listen, Alg'mxaa, my mother said, Alg'mxaa. Alg'mxaa means you listen with your heart and not your ears. Listen with your heart. And get through to the government and never be afraid. Don't back down. Never be afraid. When I saw Dene, our Simoyget Yahaan, stand on Lulu Island with his sons, first ones on that island. And when I used to watch my wife come back from negotiating in Lake Kells and trying to talk with the governments of the day, trying to take over their land, trying to take away the Olakan fishing area. They're going to put in a dam, they're going to put in a logging road, and they fought. My wife came home crying, and I didn't understand. I couldn't feel her tears. I could not feel her pain until Yahaan stood on Lulu Island, and I felt the pain. Not only the pain, but I stood up. And they asked me to go down to the United Nations and say a few words. And I did that. Imagine sitting amongst world leaders and talking. Did they listen? I don't think so. The government of the day still have not listened to us. They still take our land. They still log where they shouldn't be logging. They still fish where they shouldn't be fishing. They have not heard us. So there's peace and unity to come together the way you have today. I hope it gets back to the government that we can unify each other. We can live together. We can coexist. It doesn't have to be just native people sitting together. And I see you. I see all of you sitting there, you non-natives. And I'm really proud to welcome you here. Ts'msyen is the word we use when we say the welcome mat is out. Stand beside us, walk with us. Don't walk in front. Walk beside us and walk with us. You know, the volunteers that it takes to set up a session like this takes an awful lot of work. The people that come and set up the tables, and those that cook meals, those of us that walk around. I've been watching the chiefs walk around and say hello to everybody in this building here. That's what it takes for us to unify. We must stand strong. We must not back down. And volunteers are vital. I'm writing things down now because my memory is starting to go. But I don't know how many of you remember a Prime Minister named Sir John A. Macdonald. How many of you remember that? Yeah, Sir John A. Macdonald was one of the first Prime Ministers that set up the residential school. And when he sees you sitting here, he's turning in his graves because you are strong. Together we are strong. And I welcome you all here like our Simoyget just did right now. And the welcome mat is out. And I look forward to going on a trip tomorrow and mingle with you, say hello to you. You know, we're only friends that haven't met. So God bless you. Bless your journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for welcoming us. We're here in the spirit of peace and unity. And quite often, we don't always agree. And that's okay. I asked my grandfather one time, I said, why do we fight amongst each other? And he said, we're just like any other people. He said, you look around the globe, and there are countries at war. There are communities at war. And they're talking about their territory and why they're there and won and lost wars. And so we are here today to promote peace and unity. We're not always going to agree. But if we come together and sit down and talk, carve a path forward in unity, we will never lose, never. As Alg'mxaa was saying earlier, we're strong when we stand together. We are weaker when we're divided. I've talked to many lawyers about a path forward, and they've told me the only thing the government has on you is division. When they divide you with money, with whatever it is, resources, whatever, when you are divided, you are weaker. But when we stand together, nobody can touch us. That's the path forward we need. We know we own these lands. We know we own the resources. And we know where we want to go. We want to be self-reliant. We want to govern these lands. We want to manage these lands. You think about the billions and billions of dollars that have gone off the lands over the years. And yet, as Indigenous people, we're thought of as some of the poorest people on the earth. But it's because we were put there. We were put onto those reserves. And so, through effective communication, through peace, and through unity, we will become more powerful than any government can take on. And I encourage us all to do that. I'd just like to thank Simoyget, Yahaan, Alg'mxaa for welcoming us, and the rest of the House for welcoming us to the territory. Big round of applause. These people were responsible for protecting Lilu Island. I don't know if you heard about Lilu Island, but we were there. It's the mouth of the Skeena, eelgrass. It's where all the smolts from the Skeena come to get acclimated into the salt water, and they live there anywhere from 4 weeks to 10 weeks. And these are the people who are responsible for protecting the mouth of the Skeena. I'd like to give the opportunity to the Xees to come up and say a few words.
Just tell them this is Gitxsan territory.
Peace and unity, right?
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome everybody that's here, that came to this gathering here. It is a really important gathering that's getting us together, closer and closer together. And this is fighting against the subdivision that the federal government is trying to force on us. And it shows what the government is trying to do to us by trying to give lands out to two villages, our territory, that, like Donnie said, the 9 allied tribes fought for these lands that we're standing on here now. And every time we walk on the lands that our people fought for, our elder says our feet gets covered with the blood of our ancestors that gave their lives and sacrificed themselves to win this land for us. And so we've been fighting ever since we got these lands, and we're not going to stop, like as people said here. And ever since the allied tribes started together as a unity, I've been fighting for a better life for the younger people and the unborn generations yet to come. A better land than the one that I grew up in. When I was a little kid, every family members here were starving because of what the government did to us. They restricted us from fishing until after 1962, we finally were able to go out on the ocean to catch the salmon that we own while they're living on our traditional entitled territories, water and land. And then we were threatened by the RCMP not to hunt for any deer or anything else that's in the forest that brought us here from thousands and thousands of years ago. We were restricted from that, so we starved a lot. And now we're not starving anymore because we got back our resources that brought us here. And we're never going to give them back. And what I don't like, and what we talked about here, is that we don't like what the government is doing or allowing to have done on our traditional untitled lands, and it's being destroyed by the European people because of their greediness for money. Money is not that important for us. What's more important for us is our lands and the resources that brought us here from thousands of years ago. And we're never going to give that up. We'd all rather die like our ancestors rather than to give it up so that our unborn generations yet to come will have a better place to live on. Why? I thank you all for coming here. Thank you very much.
If I could offer a song to the floor. If I could offer a song to the floor.
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Sulacha diwayu, wab skasluk, jup gitendor, gispahwara di bidaru, Kw'alaams di walwatku. My traditional allied tribal name is Sulacha. My crest is the blackfish. I come from the house of Gaylene of the Gitendor tribe. I am from Kw'alaams. I just had to share a little bit of information with you with regards to Yahaan's journey when we first started out. And I can't even begin to state what he went through. I saw bits of it, but it was a journey worth taking. 330 million juvenile salmon migrate out of the Skeena estuary every year, and that's what we were protecting. The very first time the decision to peacefully occupy Laylo was taken, I phoned, few of us phoned Yahaan up to discuss with him the concern about LNG ships going in there and disrupting this nursery. And I'm telling you right now, I was praying while we had Yahaan on the speakerphone. And after he agreed, the only thing I had to say was, "Thank you, Creator." And from there on, he brought his boat in. Him and his wife brought their boat in. And it was an amazing experience watching the dedication to something we were not really sure. We weren't sure how deep things were going to go. And I was so proud of Yahaan and Gitxsan with their leadership at Laylo Island. I recall phoning one time. I live in Terrace. I recall phoning Yahaan one time, and I asked him how he was doing, and it was windy and blowy, and I think it was February. And the only thing he said to me was, "Brenda, I'm ready to give up." And I said, "I'll be right there." But hung up, jumped in my car, drove down, and I know that words of encouragement when someone is so tired really means a lot. So I drove down, got on the island, started cooking the way my mother taught me, you know, when the men are out there working, you get in that kitchen and you start cooking. You prepare a meal, breakfast, lunch, and supper. And so I started doing that, got the deer meat stew cooked. Some of the men working on the cabin wouldn't come to eat, so I remember my mom bringing a warm dish right out onto the work site, and that's what I did out in the rain. So I started chopping wood. I was like, just giving her chopping wood. I was like, oh my God, you know, we can't let Yahaan quit. And Yahaan finally came up to me and he said, "Brenda, what are you doing?" I just said, "I don't want you to quit. We can't quit now." And he was going, he said, "Everything will be all right." I was just, you know, just upset or tired, and I'd be tired too if I was building the huge two-story cabin that he was building with a bit of help. I appreciate everyone in this room. I feel like there should be more. Everybody from all cultures working together and taking care of the territories. The 9 allied tribes, we follow our traditional laws. When traditional food is placed on the table, you show respect towards that food. You show respect towards that salmon that is feeding you, towards its life. You take care of it. And that's one of our adal. Show respect towards the food that is placed in front of you. And by LNG going into Lelo, they were breaking our traditional law. And Donnie and Gwisawal came forward and were, you know, major warriors. There were a lot of other people, so many people from all racial groups who helped out. But I just thought I would share a bit of that story with you. Thank you.
Thank you. What an amazing group of people. They stood up and protected the salmon for the entire Skeena. Let's give them another round of applause.
Can't forget that. That's $70,000.
At this time, I'd just like to do a few notifications. Like I said yesterday, we do have photographers in the room. There's a sign up at the front desk for registration. And if you've got your regalia or any hat or vest or anything, we encourage you to wear it. With the Peace and Unity Summit, part of what we do, part of what we encourage, and part of what I do in my everyday life is I encourage participation of youth. We need to make sure that we're mentoring our youth. We're giving them those opportunities to be able to be frontline and standing up here and taking organizational roles and taking leadership roles. And so you'll see a lot of photographers throughout the event. And they're mentoring to be photographers. And graphic design. We're mentoring them to be graphic designers. Graphic recording, as you see over there, there's some youth over there. See that youth over there? Yeah. We're also live streaming. We're live on our website. A very important and crucial thing that we promote with Peace and Unity is effective communication. As I said earlier, we're not always going to agree. You can get two people in a room and they're not always going to agree. Just imagine how it is when you get hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. We're not always going to agree, and that's okay. But it shouldn't divide us. We have to work on common goals. Don't focus on what divides us. Focus on what brings us together. I'd also like to mention that Tom Smith, we Gibuu, I hope I said that right. Is Tom here? We Gibuu is here. Tom is an indigenous-focused, orientated therapy and energy techniques, and you can, if you'd like to take part in one of those sessions, you can talk to Gaylene. I'm not sure where she is. She's off and right. Oh, she's over there. There's Gaylene. She's over there in the corner there. And if you'd like to take part in the therapy, then contact Gaylene. So next in our agenda, we are going to, I'd like to call up the Peace and Unity Summit organizers and traditional practitioners in attendance. So if you're part of the organization, part of Peace and Unity organizing, I'd like to call you up at this time. I know Jesse and Nemox and Gaylene, and I know there's many others. Grace, Drew, I know I'm forgetting some people. There's so many of us. Kai Nagata, come on up, Kai. Kai's always behind the scenes. Shannon McPhail. Stephanie O'Neill. Come on up, you're the next contestant on The Price is Right. We're always having fun, right? As Indigenous people, that's what we do. So first of all, I want to give Nemox the opportunity to say a few words.
Dene's 8 you, Tsaka's 8 you, Sky's 8. I want to thank you all for coming here, for attending, for watching online. And always, as Hup-Wil-Lax-A said, it is about peace and unity. It is about telling our truth. It is about looking after the future. When we mention that the youth are here, they're watching too. They're watching what you're doing. They're watching what you're saying. They are that next generation that we depend on. We want them to have their voice. We want them to have their security, that pride, that honor, that love for this planet that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents taught us. So what we do today is we make history, but they'll make bigger history because they need to learn from you. You need to speak from the heart. The heart will always be right. Peace and Unity started with this very small team. The picture itself was just to have people be listened to, have their truth spoken, have no filters in their way, no fear. If you don't know what Team FAFO is, you're looking at it. But the very fact that you're here, you're willing to learn, you're willing to listen, you're willing to share, is what that future looks like. That future that we're looking for is what was there in the past. There's a lot of negativity out there. We need to focus on the positivity of being together, using that voice, using that heart. Like-minded people, like-hearted people, using your voice, standing together and making those changes that have to happen. They say sometimes I got to watch what I say. Well, I won't. I have currently little faith in the elected government. I don't care whether it's a non-democratic party, the liberally violent party, or the KKK conservatives. Right now, they are not listening to you, and they should be listening to you, especially when they got elections coming. Masai Kyo.
Kw'alaams Gibuu. Was dem geget? Segramanak, ganz gewusst. Denise, Tsakose, Xees. When I look into this room, I see power. And the power is with the people. The power is with our history, your stories, your songs. And most of all, the power is within the love that you share for each other. The love that we see that you share with your children and your grandchildren and your nieces and your nephews. The knowledge that's being shared, and you're creating a space where this transfer of knowledge and ultimately transfer of power can occur is sacred to us. I've heard so many encouraging words today and yesterday, and I'm so very honored and proud that you allow us to be here, to welcome us, all of the Ts'msyen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for welcoming us. You showed us what it is that we're all. So I feel very humbled and very honored. Oftentimes we forget to celebrate because we're facing trauma and we're facing problems and we're facing hardship. But let's focus and let's take the time to just slow it down just a little bit and look at each other, look at your neighbors, look at your allies, and celebrate what we have. It's beautiful. Arriving on the canoes and looking up at the dock and seeing so many people that showed up just because they want to be part of what you have felt empowering. And to hear the songs being carried down the harbor from a long ways, it felt like we were standing right beside the singers, even though we were a long ways. And that voice and those songs can guide us. Peace and unity as a movement started off very, very small. There was only 3 people that sat around for a cup of coffee. And we all faced the hardship within our communities and the ongoing divide that happens. And at the time, we were facing the very beginning of the pandemic. And it felt really important to have something that we can do face-to-face, in person,
Because that interaction, that sharing of emotions is so very important. We get used to social media and hearsay, but it is so important to look each other in the eye. Sometimes it's small interactions, daily interactions that we have that we're missing. At the time, we felt this very, very strongly. When you run into someone at the grocery store, you run into someone at the doctor's office in the waiting room, and you share a quick hello and compassion. And that was the driver behind us getting people together. And very quickly, we realized we're all the same. We're facing the same, we're driven by the same values. And when we put this on a boilerplate, there was one common factor, and that's love. Love for who we are, love for where we came from, love for each other, and the need to incorporate these values into how we conduct business, how we treat each other. And ultimately, that brought us together, and over the last 4 or 5 years, brought all of you together, and it brought together this really, really wonderful team. I can't thank them enough. There's so many of them in the room that make this possible for us and with us. So thank you.
Shannon McPhail.
Howdy. So there was the OG 3 dudes who started the Peace and Unity Summit, or at least the concept of it. And it went pretty good, but it really started to go well when they hired a woman. And that's Gaylene Morris. As somebody who does not have thousands of years of history in one place, but as a white girl who has a family that has just over 120 years of history living on unceded stolen land. And that doesn't feel very good. And I've talked about this before, but I was raised to know that when you receive something that's stolen, the right thing to do is to give it back. The hard part about that is, if I'm being honest, I know that I live on stolen, unceded Gitxsan territory, and I don't want to give it back. And that makes me feel like a fraud. So when I go to matriarchs and elders and ask, what does it mean? And I'm told by really incredible people who have held me accountable out of love, despite harmful things that maybe I've said, well-intentioned, who say, we don't want you to leave. We want you to understand what your role and responsibility is when you live on Gitxsan territory. We want you to change the way that you walk in the world and raise your kids so that they understand that as well. Because we are all in this together. And despite the violence, the militarized police action against Wet'suwet'en, what I saw happen to the Klabona keepers in the sacred headwaters, what I saw happen to people on Lilu Island, and all over, in all the fights that we have fought here in the Northwest, is the acts of reconciliation are always initiated by Indigenous people. And so I'm calling on my fellow non-Indigenous people to step up, to take action, and to learn and accept your role and responsibility when you live on unceded traditional territories. And Peace and Unity has given a voice for that. To those who want to create fear and make us feel like we're pitted against each other. When I sit across the table from people who are worried about words like land back or decolonize everything, I realize that we have very different definitions. And yet we all want the same thing. It's just that words matter. And we can't let those who are trying to pit us against each other define those words. All too often, I see industry and governments trying to create rifts between Indigenous and non-Indigenous, between hereditary and elected leaderships, when really we are the people in community. We are the people who will be here when these industries are gone, when new governments get elected, when the latest iPhone comes out. We are still the people who are here. And it's our relationship with each other that will get us through this. Kids, grandkids, sports teams, basketball, go Gitxsan Mystics. That's what brings us together. And we can't let those who are served by us being divided make more money on the backs of suffering of the people who call this place home. And I'm going to quote what I heard from the Wet'suwet'en chiefs. This was shortly after the police came over the gates and arrested mostly elders and women. And they said, we still need to move forward together for the betterment of all. And this isn't just for Wet'suwet'en, this is for all people. And I would like to hold them up and those who protected Lilu Island and the sacred headwaters and fought against the Enbridge pipeline, which shows the history. When you mess with us, when we are together, you don't stand a freaking chance. The power is in those relationships. We have defeated some of the biggest corporations on the planet repeatedly, and we will continue to do so if you're gonna mess with our people, our fish, and our way of life. So all those who have had a hand in one of those campaigns or issues, I would like you to stand up. Anybody who had a part in the Sacred Headwaters, Lilu Island, the Enbridge campaign, pipelines, Coastal GasLink, thanks.
Kai Nagata.
As the tech guy, I really appreciate planning and having a heads up before we change the agenda, so this is off the cuff. I'm Kai. I'm from the Nagata family. We live on Alg'mxaa territory in the Kispiox Valley, and I can tell you from experience that those relationships with our family members and closest neighbors are the ones that really test those ideas of peace and unity. And it's hard sometimes to see past our disagreements when they're right in our faces, when we're talking about the people that are closest to us. But the real source of conflict and division is not in our families and in our communities. It is coming at us from the outside, and it is being cultivated deliberately and strategically by people who have a very clear agenda. And last year, I had the honor of accompanying Chief Namox and Chief Was to New York City, to Wall Street, where they confronted KKR, a private equity firm that owns a majority stake in the Coastal GasLink pipeline. These people have more money than we could ever dream of, and they still want more. And so they have hired the people that they know can enact the strategies to grow that wealth. And those people are former generals, the former CIA director, and TC Energy, we just learned through an investigation in the Narwhal, employs Donald Trump's former Homeland Security advisor and the former head of diplomatic security for the entire US State Department around the world. These are top-level intelligence officers that are working now for TC Energy. And we have to ask ourselves, why are oil and gas companies hiring people who kill for a living, people who made their careers in the war on terror? That is where the conflict and division is coming from, and it's very deliberate. And the only antidote to that is what we have in this room, which is peace and unity and building these relationships between family members and neighbors. If you want to talk more about the CIA and all that fun stuff, I'll be around all weekend, so happy to chat over coffee. But I just wanted to bring it back to what we're really facing and remind us that if we feel that discouragement, that sense of being watched, the sense of being divided and played against each other, that's not in our heads. That is a very deliberate strategy, and we need to find ways to overcome that. Thank you.
Stephanie O'Neill.
Hi, my name is Stephanie O'Neill, and I am confident saying that I am one of the newest members on Team FAFO. I'm very grateful to be welcomed into this team. My family is from Ballybeg in Ireland and Vummels in Friesland. They have found their way to Treaty 6 territory to settle. I myself am moving around between places and really have felt welcomed on Gitxsan territory and look forward to potentially settling there myself. Yay! I would really like to quote Jesse in this moment. He said something really poignant to me, that is, relationships move at the speed of trust. I felt that since I've joined this team. I felt that in this very room. I am honored to be able to listen and to learn from everybody who chooses to share their words and their energy with us in this space today, tomorrow, yesterday, days past, and days in the future. This summit has changed my life completely. I hope that folks in this room also leave feeling changed. Other white people like me, I hope that people feel inspired to ask questions, to make mistakes, to fall on their faces, and get back up again. We move forward as a team, we move forward as friends, as family, with those who we've lost, and those who are yet to come. I'm also extraordinarily grateful that this summit, I have had the pleasure of working with phenomenal youth on the photography mentorship program. And already in 24 hours, I've seen folks who have not wanted to say one word blossom, advocate for themselves, step into spaces that are nerve-wracking. I've done photography, it's scary. And I look forward to 2 days from now when we get to start flipping through thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of photos. I look forward to sharing the prints with folks in this room and distributing them on social media. And I want to make it very clear that this footage is not to be gatekept. If folks are interested in seeing it and using it, we encourage that. We want to ensure that these messages are spread far and wide and that we can all share in what we're learning here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Gaylene.
The one and only.
The audacity of some people. How's everybody doing? I hope you're all watered and I hope you're all fed. I really want to take the time to show my appreciation and my gratitude to the Simoyget and the Alg'mxaa that have graciously and very openly trusted this process for Peace and Unity 2024. It was a very beautiful learning experience to be able to work alongside many of the elders, many of the nation members, and all of the people that have just come out of the woodworks in the last 3 weeks. This summit, we've had many discussions within the last couple of days of how this summit has grown. There's a lot of observation of how the discussions have happened, and my favorite word is that we've manifested this entire summit to be what it is at this very moment. And I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge all of the work of all of these beautiful people behind me that have put the work, the tireless hours, and the dedication to extend the invitation to every person that's sitting here, all of the people that are joining us via live stream, and those that are still on their way here. I think it's very, very beautiful that we can have so many people from all walks of life here right now in this very moment. And one of the beautiful things that I follow almost every single day is that when I work with our Dene in our Xees, I always ask for our ancestors to walk before us, to walk behind us, and to walk alongside us. And yesterday, I had one of my sisters stand alongside me, and that was the purpose, was for my daughter to also understand and to learn in the work that we're doing at the grassroots level, the teachings that our grandparents have also given us, that we also transfer that knowledge over to our children. And we stood on that dock, and I was teaching my daughter to call our ancestors before us, to call our ancestors behind us, and for them to walk alongside us. And my sister Jossie came and she sang with me too, and it was a very beautiful thing. And then Cedar came and stood with us as well, and he called his ancestors to come stand with us. And you think of that, all of the words that we put out there, all of the words and all of the things that we ask our ancestors to come do for us, to come walk alongside us. Our room is full. And we don't realize that. We don't realize that each of us come from different parts of this world. And all of the things that they've asked for in prayer and all of the things that they've asked for in their life, this is it, peace and unity. So I would just like to really show my gratitude to each of you and really thank you for accepting the invite to be here. We have an amazing team that has just done amazing work, and there are many, many teams behind them that are doing great work, and there are many people that believe in the work that we do. And I would just like to show my appreciation to them and just to say thank you to them as well. We have some of our own Dene in our Xees that are sitting here, and I want to acknowledge the Wet'suwet'en, and I want to acknowledge the Gitxsan for coming and standing alongside of us to witness the important work that is going to happen in the next few days. Say.
So, you've heard FAFO a few times. I can see some people smiling who know what FAFO means. So, we've decided to call ourselves Team FAFO. And so if you don't know what FAFO stands for, it means F around and find out. You mess with this team and you F around, you'll find out. Because we've got all of you behind us. I don't have a beep button, so I just had to say F around. So. But thank you, Team FAFO, the organizers of the Peace and Unity Summit 2024. And like they said, there's many, many more out there who aren't standing up here with us who've had a hand in this. And we put our hands up to you. We put our hands up to all those You know who you are. The funders, the people who've chipped in to help us. We recognize you. We love you. We care for you, your family. So I'll let you guys. What?
So before I cut Kirby off, we have a token of appreciation that we would like to gift each one of you. I see why they put this down now. I'm tippy-toeing. I would like to let each of you know that each of your tables will be receiving a token of our appreciation as the Peace and Unity team. Our team has all gone, and they are going to get some tote bags. I think you might have seen the swag of the Peace and Unity sweaters and the vests. You'll see those on different people. We have made some bags, some gift bags that have the Peace and Unity logo on it. And there are a variety of different goodies that are in there to hold you over in your hotel room. We were thinking of everything, so we make sure that you're fed even in your hotel room. In those bags, there's also a Peace and Unity mug. And there's a bunch of other things that are in there, so I hope you all enjoy it. And that is our gift for you coming and accepting our invitation, Messiah.